Recorder is on. I think red, yes, red means go. So we're going to go over some areas that I needed to I didn't go over with you guys last time. So the concern is safety. And I didn't go over it, I think the first and second time, or even the third time we've gone. So one of the things that I have to go over with you guys is the aspect of safety in regards to the building. So this is primarily just looking at the outlook of if you've had, I believe it was active shooter training, one of the things that we have to kind of go over a lot of times is the aspect of safety for you, the individual. So initially within that, if you notice, one of the things is locate where your exits are. So initially for here, we have one major exit here. And there's three parameters that I'm going to be going over really quickly. The first parameter is the outlook of, and we always look at that, fight, flight, or freeze. So within that you have three different options. So in the case of an active shooter, one of the big things I always try to encourage is, and if I do hear the pop, 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 and within that I will yell gun, everything else, but I will also give, I don't really give you the option, I will just simply yell either run or hide. And within that, that's one of the big things is it's an option to you. So within that you have three different options. You can either run out the door, everything else. So initially the door is right here. So in the case of an active shooter, that's one of the big things I always look at, is if you are going to leave the premises here, the door is here so you can get out and you can get out to this door, which is the sliding door, because we are on the first floor, or you can go upstairs, everything else. But one of the big things is a lot of times we always have cell phones. So cell phones are primarily our key connector to the world. So within that, when you're going, one of the things is I always advise individuals is to get as far away from the building as possible, so long as you are a safe distance. So within that, if you're in close to here, say Lee, you're going to contact local law enforcement, which is 2111 or 2112. So that's the connector to Chinle PD. The reason why is, and that's one of the things is, I don't have the numbers I think for Winter Rock or even Shiprock, but if you're in this location, the reason why I ensure that one, you know those numbers is because if you call 911, you're going to get a completely different location. You might end up getting Winter Rock, or you might end up getting Shiprock PD. So at the end of that, that's one of the big things I'm always looking at is when you're coming from those angles, getting out. So that's one. You have the option of running. The other option is hiding. So within your classroom, a lot of times you're looking within your classroom. And within that, as you look within your classroom, I always try to make sure of situational awareness. I'm a big proponent of situational awareness and being aware of your given surroundings. So within that, say for example, when you are driving back late at night, you come to a gas station, what do you usually do? I'm hoping that you look around. Most individuals don't. They just simply say, oh, you know what? I'm just going to get out of my vehicle and everything else and go into the store and everything else. And I'm like, just be aware of your surroundings at all times, even on campus. And I have evening classes as well. So one of the things I try to make sure that is apparent is if you do want, and this is for Saley campus, if you do want, I always try to make sure that if that is an option that you want, I can have security sit outside and everything else, and they will wait to make sure everybody gets into the vehicle and goes home. But that's primarily one of the big things is they're there. Security is there for your safety. And that's one of the big things I'm always looking at. In addition to that, so you have the run. The other option, as I was talking about, is the hiding. So one of the big things is you should have a light switch over in your classroom or anything else. I always advise to one, turn off the light switch, everything else, make sure the blinds are drawn, everything else, and also to hide. Make yourself as low as possible. And then the third option, when it comes to it, one of the big things is the possibility of actually having to fight. A lot of times we look at a given parameters and look at different areas of the different tools that we have in front of us. We have our cell phones, we have pencils, we have pens, we have all these different utensils or given items that can be utilized as a weapon. And that's one of the things is when I teach self-defense, one of the areas I'm always looking at, I teach, well I don't teach it now, but at a given time, one of the things I'm always looking at is what's called the SPUR method. So the SPUR is simply stun, push, and run. So stun, push, and run, you're simply looking at the aspect of One, I'm going to stun this individual so that I can push and I can get out of that situation. A lot of individuals, when I teach them, they're like, oh, what if I do all this kung fu stuff and everything else, boom, 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 boom. I said, a lot of times you're not going to remember all that unless you've been consistently training. So one of the big options is to stun. So when you're stunning a person, you want to make sure that you get out of the way. So if you're going to stun a person, what are you going to do? Either go for the eyes, or if it's for a male individual, you go for the groin, you go for the shins, you go for different areas, soft points. So that you can what? Push, and you're pushing with all your might. You're going boom, and you're trying to get out through that door. So those are the primary given aspects. So again, you're always looking at those different areas. Next to your door should have an emergency procedure on the off chance that something were to happen. Again, they are there. Some individuals have said, you know what, you're trying to curse us. No, I'm simply looking out from the outlook of you should be aware of your given surroundings at all given times. So that's one of the things I'm always looking at. So does anybody have any questions in regards to that?
I don't have a question, but when you were talking about if you like stop at a gas station or something, traveling alone, I used to travel a lot alone, and when I used to stop at gas stations to stretch and stuff like that, I always used to make sure and conversate with the person working at the store to let them know that I'm there.
Exactly. That's one of the big things we're always looking at, making sure that, and that's one of the things I'm always trying to teach people. I try to teach any individual is as you're going along, if you're traveling. How many like to go hiking a lot? I like to go hiking a lot. And so one of the things is, if you go hiking, I always tell people, I said, do you tell people where you're going to go? Do you have a mapped route? And some people are like, no. I just love just going out there and getting lost. I said, please don't. I said, it's one of those things when you're having to do an active search. And I've done active searches. I've done missing person searches. It's highly stressful because one, if they did not leave a map, it makes it a little more difficult to find the individual. So one of the big things I always tell people, I said, tell people where you're going and if you've gone to that given point. And that's one of the things, it just becomes a habit. Say for example, if you have kids, I always tell my son, I said, if you're going somewhere, let me know where you're going to go. Make sure you got there safely, everything else. That's one of the big things. He has a cell phone. And some people are like, oh my goodness, he has a cell phone at a young age. Yes, because one, I make sure that he connects with me and communicates with me at all times. And that's one of the big things that a lot of times you guys have cell phones. So that's one of the big things, always making sure that there's always that connection. You're always safe at all times. And even when you look at on campus, you have the different pods. There's different pods out there which have the big giant, you press that button, it will send off an alert, everything else. It will start flashing and everything else. And within that, you will have security alerted and they will race over. But within that, one of the big things I always ask is, if you have evening classes, you can even ask security, say, hey, can you wait around a little bit longer just to make sure I get to my car, to get to my vehicle, everything else. Because again, they are there for your security. A lot of individuals are like, what if I annoy them? That's their job, is to make sure that you are safe. So within that's one of the big things is always use those opportunities to make sure that you're safe at all times. So, hold on, let me grab my tea really quickly. I will be back in a bit. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back.
What?
Facebook.
Did everybody sign in? Yeah, I think it's something. Oh, okay.
I'm waiting for it, man.
Where's that stuff?
Think about 2 months. Try to my daughter to get it.
Hey, that website we were talking about, what did you say the name of that website was?
What was it?
Was it textbook?
I was trying to figure what it was. Oh, Amazon.
Okay.
Or you can find it on Facebook.
Have you started your discussion?
I put the third one
I'm like an onion, I swear. I have like so many layers. It's ridiculous. All right, so where did I leave off? So 2 days ago, we were looking at the aspect of what is impacted. So as you're going along, you're looking at the aspect of these different inputs. How many have actually looked at the PowerPoints? The PowerPoints, I think, are already up, are they? Yes, maybe. Yes.
For last week, yeah.
Oh, for last week. Okay, so they'll be up today, by the end, hopefully by the end of today. If not, by early tomorrow. So as we're going along, we're looking at synaptic cleft. So we're kind of just picking up where we left off 2 days ago. And as we're moving on, I don't know if you guys got my emails. Did everybody get my email? There should have been an email sent out at a given time on Monday. So on Monday I sent out an email, and we did talk about the aspect of children. There was some discussion about children and the aspect of psychopathology with children. And I think at one point there was a student that actually asked, is there a reality? Is there a given reality in terms of can a child actually suffer from post-traumatic stress? And we talked about that, right? We talked about the impacts. We talked about the realities that yes, there is a possibility. Well, not even so much a possibility, there is that given reality. So as we're going along, we're looking at communication. So as we're looking at communication, a lot of this is happening with the synapse. So the synapse is where initially information is being communicated immediately. As you're going along, you're primarily coming across the aspect of, okay, this is happening, boom, 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 boom. This morning, say for example, your alarm came on. If you go by an alarm, I was talking with a colleague, they said, nope, I don't go by an alarm. Never had to use it ever. I said, really? That's not me. I have to have something startle me in the morning to make me get out of bed. If not, I will sleep until 9, 10 o'clock. That's me. Some people are like, that's not Danette. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Father's sun has probably already risen, everything else, and I'm still sleeping. They're like, that's horrible. Yeah. But I taught, what, last night? I was teaching and I taught for 3 hours. Yeah, there's a part of me that's like, I want to sleep. So this morning, the same thing happened. But within that, there was an outlook of, okay, alarm came on. It jolts me out of bed. For some individuals, and we were talking about that last night. Who was in my class last night? So last night, we were talking about babies. And we're looking at babies, and we're looking at the birth process and everything else. But one of the big things that we're looking at is, for babies, when they're primarily born, and when they're initially born, they will force themselves to go into sleep. How many have ever done that? You wake up, and suddenly you look at your alarm, it says 3:40 a.m., and you're thinking, this is not when I normally get up. And I am going to force myself to be dead to the world. And that's what we do, right? We try to learn that. And then suddenly our alarm comes on, then we miss the alarm, and then suddenly we're running late, everything else. It happens. But within this, we're looking at neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters pass between the two structures. Within that, they're gathered in an area on the receiving structure. In other words, receptor sites. And this is where it becomes very concerning. Because if you're utilizing any type of medication, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, it mixes with the anatomy of your neurotransmitters. It'll block it. It'll fill those voids. And when that happens, guess what? You have the elation. If you're on a mood stabilizer, it allows you to mellow out. That's the reason why when we're working with individuals that have schizophrenia or individuals who have some type of mood disorder, one of the big things is, once you taper off, what happens to the individual? What do you think happens to the individual? What do you think could happen to the individual?
You get agitated?
Snap,
They snap, they get agitated, why?
because there's something that was helping them with the problem
Mhm.
they had, and they get off.
Yeah.
Almost like withdrawals?
It's like withdrawals, right? It's something you just go like, you're perfect, you're kind of going a streamline. You kind of like, you're paddling. You're that duck that's paddling. On an open pond, it's perfect, it's so pristine, it's so just clear. You're going along, underneath it's going, all that's happening. But then suddenly when you get off of it, any type of medication, it'll disrupt things. It'll change it. The electrical reactions will change. It'll create what's caused it will create an initial chemical imbalance. That's the reason why we look at it. From the medical model, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at chemical imbalances. We're looking at the outlook of saying, okay, this is happening. This is happening from a chemical standpoint.
So it blocks the
Yes.
neurotransmitters
It can, yeah.
when they take like antidepressants and
Mhm.
stuff?
And it will impact it. So now, not all neurotransmitters released in the synaptic cleft is needed or will be used. That's one of the things. Sometimes they'll just dissipate, go along everything else. But one of the big things is, as it's going forward, neurotransmitter is broken down by enzymes. So all of this is happening immediately in your body right now. As you're going through, it's all boom, 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 boom. The neurotransmitter is taken back into the discharging axon now, so it reuptakes or reutilizes again, breaks it all down again to another enzyme, goes all the way through again. So now, neurotransmitters can either be excitatory or inhibitory. So they'll either inhibit something from happening, or it'll excite different portions of your body, or different parts of your mind, or different parts, so that one, it's allowing it to react. So when we look at fight or flight, we're looking at the outlook of saying, okay, if this is going to happen, say for example, if I need to suddenly jump out of this room right now, I have to have it immediate. So it's going to spark my what? Heart rate. It's going to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. So when I need to go, and suddenly if I need to get out of here, my heart rate's going to go up. In addition to that, say for example, how many have ever played hide and seek when they were small? How many, when you're playing hide and seek, suddenly you need to go to the bathroom? You're just like, oh my gosh, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to go to the bathroom. Because one, you're so excited. Two, there's almost a level of fear. You're like, I don't want to be found. I don't want to be found. I don't want to be found. Your mind is not telling you, okay, you don't want to be found. There's a level of fear. It's not an initial fear of, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. It's more along the lines of, I don't want to be found, therefore, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to release things. So in those given moments, say for example, if there's a level of trauma, you have an individual who will either release themselves of some form. That's the reason why you have individuals who are in a traumatic incident who will either urinate or defecate, because one, they're trying to say, okay, I need to dispel all of this waste so I can get out of here immediately. I can release all this stuff so my body can function even better.
I've seen it done.
Yeah.
We're in a MRAP, and the door, it comes down. I told him, okay, this goes down, we
Yeah.
will be shot at,
Yeah.
okay? This guy just shoots
Yeah.
himself. And he goes, I'm like, you good? Fucking get on the 50, man.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you can't be out there, man.
Yeah.
But he was good, I mean,
Yeah.
but he said this,
Yeah. And it happens really quickly, right? Because it's all that adrenaline, everything else, and it's saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. I have to release everything because one, I need to run faster, I need to move quicker, and it's all that's happening. Again, a lot of people are like, why would that happen?
I've seen people like throw up,
Exactly.
like before the first jump,
Yeah.
and everyone's going.
Mhm. Yeah, it's disgusting, right? You're like,
What
"Ew."
about when they faint?
When they faint. So now, when they faint, you're looking at the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Now they both collide. So within that, what happens? You freeze. To the point where your body is saying, okay, the best thing I can do is simply fall down. So that's one of the big things you're always looking at. So now, abnormally low or high levels of select neurotransmitters are present in select instances of abnormal behavior. So that's the reason why, yes.
No question, say someone's got a TBI, right?
Yeah.
How does this get affected?
So traumatic brain injury. If you take into account traumatic brain injury, you're looking at a given trauma to the given neurotransmitter sites. So now, your body is having to rewire itself. So it's not firing to its full capacity anymore. So all that's happening, so your neural network is impacted. Blood is not getting to certain regions, all this is happening, there's possibly a blood clot, there's all these different things. So now when that's happening, it's impacting how it's firing off. So that's primarily what you're looking at is if that happens, your body is trying to rewire itself all the way through. Because last time we were talking about the brain being very pliable and very malleable. So again, it's still trying to learn what things it needs to learn. That's the reason why I say, for example, even for traumatic brain injury or even to a spinal injury, we're always looking at the outlook of the reality that not everything is final. Because if you have a level of stress, and I have an individual that I know who has had an injury to the spinal cord, and it's at the higher up region, I think it was I want to say L5, might be higher. So within that, all the way down, the individual cannot feel anything. But the family is saying, he says he can. Doctors say he's probably going to be like this for the rest of his life. I'm from the other outlook of, we don't know yet. Because the reality is, your body and your mind is very unique. That's the thing I love about it. Because one, it has a level of elasticity in terms of, because as you're going along, this individual, as they begin to focus, this individual has been paralyzed from the bottom down, from neck down. But one of the things he's primarily doing is he's focusing in on the fact of, can I will my body to begin to heal itself? Every day, just looking at his toes. Come on, move.
So it has a lot to do with mind over matter.
Exactly.
And also neuroplasticity.
And the neuroplasticity. Your mind is constantly trying to rewire itself. Boom, 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 and move all the way around. Because one of the big things it's always looking at is, can I do it? And the reality is we've seen individuals, medical miracles, where they've been able to overcome these different things. Because again, we're only limited by what we can initially study. But there's other areas where it's outside of that given realm, and so we're saying, okay, do we have enough hope? We're always trying to, from the aspect of counseling and everything else, we're always trying to look from the outlook of, can we build up the hope factor for this individual? Are we able to build up their hope factor so they're able to change their mindset? Say, for example, how many have ever thought, you know what, I'm never going to get over this breakup, I'm never going to get over this, I'm never going to get over that. Ah! But then at some point, what happens? Get over it, right? You're like, I can survive. I can do this. All right. David.
I've had to, like, I have to go through that stuff.
Mhm.
CBT, CPT, but then it goes to the relationship between that and PTSD, and a lot of them are the same
Yeah.
symptoms, but, someone else told me that, I'm on a regimen of zinc and, vitamin C. They say it's supposed to help.
So one of the big things is you also have clinicians and also counselors who utilize more of, how should you call it, a natural-based methodology. More of an Eastern medicine versus the Western medicine. So primarily all of this is Western medicine. We're looking at everything from the outlook of, this is what happens, this is the treatment, and this is the diagnosis, and then we can try to cure you through the utilization of man-made drugs. But then there's also the outlook of utilizing Eastern medicine. Eastern medicine is things from meditation, we're looking at acupuncture. We're looking at all these different things that, one, we've never primarily taken into consideration. And we've seen some benefits of it too. Yes?
So how would you notice the difference between if a client or a patient actually got over it, or if they were just repressing it?
That's where we utilize a lot of talk therapy. Because as you're going along, you're learning to also delve into their lives so you're able to continually say, this is a safe environment. Within that, I want you to share more. I want you to continuously pull out more, pull out more, pull out more. And that's primarily what you're doing every time when you're counseling. a lot of times you have individuals who go to counseling throughout their whole life. Because we're thinking counseling is supposed to be what? One time, one-stop shop, you go there, you're cured, you're good, you're awesome, you're everything else, and you just get out the door. But the reality is, sometimes you're there for a long period of time. And that's where you're also looking at what is the right fit for me. If I'm going to a counselor, or if I'm going to a clinician, or to a psychologist, is this really helping me? Do I feel like it's helping me? Because all of this is very subjective. If we're looking at abnormal behavior, it's very subjective in terms of things that you're struggling with, you yourself. Notice people are observing from the outside, but you're also looking at the outlook of what is happening internally with me. Am I being helped? Is this just a waste of money? And one of the big things is when you're going to a clinician or to a counselor, they're also evaluating. They're going through and saying, okay, this is what we're looking for. We're seeing small improvements here and there. And one of the big things is there was an individual that came to my office one time. And they were dealing with meth. And right now, as we know currently, there is no real initial cure for a person dealing with meth. All we know now is primarily the outlook of we'll try to taper them off. In addition to that, one of the big proponents that we're always looking at is familial input.